Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Allure of the Poor, sponsored by Dracaena Wines. I am your host, Lori, UC Davis graduate, WSET Level 2, Champagne specialist, Côte d'Aron, and now keeping my fingers crossed because I am a student once again with the Wine Scholar Guild of the Spanish Wine Scholar, and it is scaring the living daylights out of me because it's so much information, but keeping my fingers crossed. But today I am back in Paso, and I am so excited to be talking to Jordan Fiorentini from Epoch Wine Estate. So hello, hello, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me, Lori.
Absolutely. I am so thrilled to have you here. We did a little talking previously, and my husband and I, we drink your wine all the time. So it's nice to, be face to face and talk to you. And I have a little surprise for you. Yes. So look what I have here.
Oh my goodness. It's the creativity that I signed. I can't see what year it is.
2011.
Oh my gosh, that was the first year.
I know. I was like, when we talked the last time, I'm like, we have a signed bottle. I was like, what is it? I don't know. And I came home.
Oh my gosh, I haven't had that wine in years. That was the first year we bottled that creativity, which changes every year when there's something special that we don't want to blend away. We bottle it. And I used to sign every bottle. Put something there that said enjoy Grenache or something.
Yeah. Yes, it says enjoy some Grenache. Yes, and that we do.
I'm so glad. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you are on our wall of fame. You know how some people, restaurants have the pictures of people. Like we have the wine bottle. So
oh my gosh, that is a special one. I know I probably have like hand arthritis from those bottles. I couldn't do it anymore, but I did it way back when.
You think about it, you're like, oh, if that's your first year, you're like, okay, I'll do everyone. This will be my little, shtick thing. I will do this all the time. And then you're like, oh no, this is not going to.
I went from like a saying, and I would try to do a different saying on everyone, and then someone, kind of weird, like, take me home tonight. I was like, no.
Erase. No.
Sound right. Anyway.
No, that is awesome. That is awesome. But today, one of the things I love about it, people say, what do you love most about podcasting? And I know the answer should be, oh, I get to meet fantastic winemakers and, talk about their stuff, but it gives us an opportunity to day drink.
Yes.
So I know the light makes this very difficult to see, but this is your 2017 estate blend. So I am very excited to be day drinking this. So I'm going to pour this in my glass, and I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody first. And that is, what is your origin story? How did you get into wine?
Whoa, that's a great story. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, so not a wine growing region, but my dad loved to collect wine, and he loved wine, but he really liked to collect it and got really lucky because he was an attorney in Atlanta at the time, and he started collecting 1982 Bordeaux's and wines from Europe at that time. That was such a fabulous vintage. So, and I think they were like $20 to $30 a piece. So we got introduced to really great wine while we were young at my family, in my household. And then I went to school in New England, studied engineering at a liberal arts school, also took a lot of art classes and Italian classes. And I really wanted a profession that combined the two, so science and art. I loved to cook. I was very creative. I think I still am pretty creative, so I really would follow that path, but just love to base a lot of what I did in science as well. And so when I was graduating, I told my dad, I was like, I just want to go work a harvest in Napa, and then I'll figure out what I want to do, because I knew it existed as a profession. Most people didn't back where I was from, but I did. So I packed my stuff up, headed to California, got an internship in Napa. This is 1999, not to date myself, but
You're
and
still a lot younger than I am, so go ahead.
in St. Helena at Markham Vineyards, which was it was like the heyday of Merlot at that moment. And so I got a job there, totally hit it off with the associate winemaker and the winemaker, who I'm both friends with still today. I have a funny story about that. But the associate winemaker at Markham back then was a woman named Kimberly Nichols, and she's now the winemaker, and she's been the winemaker for years. So we've been friends forever, and then worked. Then I decided to go to UC Davis for my master's degree. So I have a master's in viticulture and enology from Davis. Started there in 2000. So I didn't work the 2000 harvest, except for at Davis, because we worked in the vineyard there a little bit. It's a student-run vineyard, so it's interesting. Some of it's really great, and some of it's experimental. And then the 2001 harvest were to Napa again. And then in 2002, I had studied Italian as an undergrad and was looking for ways to go back to Italy. So I worked a harvest in Tuscany, and then actually met my husband when I was there, an Italian. So we moved back to the States, and my father in the North Georgia mountains started to plant a vineyard. And we actually went back to Georgia for a little while to help him open a winery and tasting room. So we did that for several years. And then we both wanted to move back to California. So we came back, and I got a job at Chalk Hill in Sonoma County, and was there for a few years, and eventually made my way down to Paso Robles after meeting the owners of Epoch, Bill and Liz Armstrong, who are amazing, charismatic people. Before we had a winery, we just were making our wine at Denner Vineyards, and we had our Pederevski Vineyard and been planting our Catapult Vineyards, so two of our properties, back in 2010. So, but the funny thing is, the winemaker who worked with me at, who I worked for at Markham, my first year, is actually, he's now the winemaker at Chalk Hill. So we kind of, I know, Chalk Hill's a very different place now. It got picked by Foley, so it's a bigger winery. It's just fun to see all the connections and everything come sort of like full circle. So
it's like the wine world is like a spider web, right? It branches out, and there's all of these connections, and it's like, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's like the 6 degrees of winemaking.
It's like we're all separated by maybe 2, but probably
right. Yeah, I remember, not the little tangent thing. I remember Chalk Hill, the first time we tasted Chalk Hill, we were like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. And I think we paid like $12 for it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then, maybe 15. And that, at that point, that was a splurge for us,
Right.
and then it got the ratings that it got and everything. And then like the price has kind of gone a little up there,
but very special property. It's in Healdsburg, in Sonoma County, but almost in Russian River. So it's different than a lot of
one leg in each, right?
Exactly. It straddles both. It's a big piece of property. So it's got like warmer climate stuff for the Bordeaux program. And then an amazing Sauvignon Blanc property in the cooler slopes, and also Chardonnay. So.
Right. So when you went back home, was your dad like, yeah, my daughter just, graduated UC Davis, has done this internship or whatever. This is my turn now. I'm gonna get this vineyard going, and I'm gonna get some cheap labor out of my daughter to get it going.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much like he is his dream, and it was us helping him out, like trying to just, it's kind of like it's not the Wild West because you're on the East, but there's not very many wineries, especially at that time. So sort of figuring all that stuff out, and as much work as you wanted to throw to it, you could. So that's kind of any family business, or any business for that matter, when you're passionate about it. So.
And I'm guessing that was probably like a really amazing experience for you, because like UC Davis, it's phenomenal, right? But it's a very kind of bubbly, in a good way to say, what I was trying to say, right? You learn what you need to learn, and you go on. And one of the things is, every vintage, when it comes to winemaking, every vintage is a whole different ball game. Mm-hmm. It's like starting a new game with the new rules and all of this stuff. But if you went from start to finish, basically with your dad's vineyard, I'm sure you saw so many different things and so many, balls being thrown at you that it was such a learning experience.
Totally, for sure. Like my husband was helping on the tasting room side, and then the winery and the grapes are very different than they are out here. So it is sort of like it was a lot. It was cool to figure that out from the business side too. I can tell you that wine is, I don't want to say it's easier to make. It's just like you have a lot of easier growing conditions on the West Coast.
I would think so.
Oh, there's a lot less concerns, now, back then we weren't really worried about wildfire. There weren't as many drought situations. So now I guess you could say it's sort of like apples to apples in a way. Just they're different concerns, but there's more concerns out here than there were before.
Right. So if we return back to Paso, so now you found your way down to Paso with the Armstrongs and Epoch, and I love the name. I remember the very first time that we visited, and it was Epoch, and I should be embarrassed to announce this on podcast, but my husband and I got into a fight because of the name. And and I don't know. Oh, he was saying Epoch.
He was pronunciation, right?
Right. And I'm like, no, it's Epoch. Like, this point in time, like it's epic. He's like, no, that's EPIC. I'm like, no, it's not like we're getting into this argument or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people call it Epoch. I think like it's easiest if you think about, because the Europeans, Epoch, it kind of helps you feel like it's bigger, because when you say epic, the EPIC kind of like comes to mind. But yeah, it's Epoch, and it's one point in geologic time. So, the rock formations that basically were made hundreds of thousands of years ago that are what we are producing grapevines in right now, or wines, I should say, that we are making wines in this epoch from a different epoch. So it's our epoch, right, to be making wine from the soil. So yeah, and the cool thing is Bill and Liz are both geologists. Right. So it spoke to them as well. And as Liz always likes to point out, it's a name that was available, because as everyone knows, it's hard to find a wine name that isn't already taken.
That is very true. That is very, oh my God, yes.
Having more, I feel like it grew the gravitas with us and the brand and the sophistication of like the wine and the architecture and the gorgeousness of the vineyards, and sort of just like grew up as Paso Robles has grown up,
And that's like actually really true. Like what was Epoch's first vintage?
2007.
2007. So Paso of 2007 is very, very different than Paso of 2022. So, and your first, were
2010 was the first year I was here. So I basically I bottled all the wines except for the 07s.
Okay. And
first vintage, yeah.
And so what are some things that you've seen change in Paso from your first, I mean, and it's we try to stick to an hour podcast. I'm sure you could go on for hours and hours, but like, what are some things that have changed from 2010 to now?
So it's funny, when I first looked to move here, of course, I was coming from a pretty well-renowned winery in Sonoma County. And so I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't like, this place I'm moving to has legs, like it's going to grow and it's going to be something, right? When I put my winemaking, what I've learned, and take it here and try to create something fantastic. And, because I knew a little bit about it, like I'd been mentioned in a Wine Spectator article with some local winemakers, and I was very intrigued at that moment, but I just didn't know what, my peers thought about it. So I just asked around to a bunch of different people, and I got like a whole host of different responses from like, yeah, you can make amazing wine down there, to like, have you heard of like these types of wine where people like try to do the opposite of what you're taught is right for wine? And so I just had to come down and see for myself. And when I came here, I met the most amazing people. I felt like, I love Napa and Sonoma, and I think even through Paso, I've met even more winemakers up there that I knew than when I was there. but everybody here is friendly, and everything you hear is true about Paso. Is just like, the rising tide floats all ships.
Yeah.
But there's just so many more people here now, which is so great to see. But the main group has grown, but it's still really tight and it's still really supportive. But yeah, I mean, I think the region itself has just grown in notoriety so much too, which is, it's really fun to see everybody doing well,
Yeah.
selling all their wine, and then Paso being in like all these magazines as the wine region of the year. And, the next they're the hottest place to go, where it's like, we all knew it. And it was so obvious, right? This place was so amazing that you're kind of like, well, I knew it. I just was also like working every day to try to like make the wines reflect how awesome this place is. So.
And where are Bill and Liz Armstrong originally from?
So Bill's from Texas and Liz is from Louisiana, and they met in college in Texas at SMU, and they live between Denver, Texas, and basically here now.
So how did they settle in? How did Epoch come about? How did they find?
So they found this region so when Bill he's a geologist in oil and gas, and just self-made person, he's never worked for a big corporation or anything. But when he started to find some success in his business, he, as many people do, you're stuck at a dinner, some steakhouse, and you're like, these dinners are all the same. And like, let me look at the wine list. Oh, that's kind of intriguing. Like, then you start ordering, you start trying, you start like investigating what all this is about. I obviously really loved wine, started to really get into it. He actually has level 2 of the Somm certification that he's in, had a great teacher, and then just started to fall in love with the wines of Chateauneuf. And then him and Liz were looking for property to have a winery or a vineyard. I think they wanted to start there. And they were looking all over California and the East Coast and New Zealand, I think. But then they really fell in love with Paso because sort of like the last, sort of like cowboy town in California. The rocks here are amazing. There is the, sister winemaking region of Chateauneuf-du-Pape. And so that's where they set their sights on Paso. And then Liz loves history, and they discovered the Pederevski property. It wasn't for sale, but they discovered it and were able to purchase it. And then this whole amazing history started to unravel about who used to own the property, and that there were grapes grown there. And, so we've just been able to honor the history of Pederevski. And then we found the York Mountain property to be our tasting room and winery location. And then there's so much rich history here as well. So putting the history of Paso in wine back together, along with the project itself, it's just been really fascinating and quite a ride.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, can you explain who Pederevski is?
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's people who may not know, because I think I was going to say, thank you for admitting that. Thank you, because I remember the very first time I spoke to somebody about Paso, they brought, they mentioned, well, of course, Pederevski. I'm like,
yes.
No, I'm like, I was mortified that I didn't know who this person was. But so there's so much history with him into Paso. So we would like to give his history some tribute.
Thank you for that. I know, because always when I have people come visit the winery, and they're going to tour around or go to the tasting room, and it's just like, do you know anything about okay, so I have to tell you all about this, so then we can taste the wines. So, but it's just really great to have a story behind the label too. So Ignacy Pederevski was a famous Polish composer, pianist, and he came to the United States in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and traveled around on on train, and performed. He was actually the first solo concert performer in Carnegie Hall. And he was really famous back then. He was actually the character that Schroeder from the Peanuts is based on. I have a picture of him too. It's like, he's like poking through right there.
Oh yes, I do see him. Yes.
On my desk. And he, so he traveled around, and people didn't have TV. Maybe they have radio. I'm not sure what there was radio, but I'm not sure how much of his music was played on radio, but anyway, people would go and hear him perform as entertainment, right? So he was on the West Coast. He was actually, I think, in Seattle, but he was suffering from really bad rheumatoid arthritis in his hands. And somebody recommended that he come to Paso Robles and soak in the mineral hot springs that used to run rampant in the area. There are still some. And he did. He stayed at the Paso Robles Inn, and he fell in love with the area. And this was the early 1900s. His doctor, I guess, who told him to come here is also his real estate agent. So
that's an odd.
I know. And so but he fell in love with the property, and he is a very forward-thinking man, and he wanted to plant orchards and grapevines, and so he did that. And so the main heart of the property that he used to own, which is about 2.5 miles west of downtown Paso, is our we named it after him, but is our vineyard. We call it the Pederevski Vineyard. And we planted Zinfandel and Durif, which is Petite Syrah, in honor of him, because those are varieties that he had planted. He had researched with the professors. It was UC Berkeley, it was Cal at that point that had all the school, but then the ag switched to Davis much later. And so we have communication between him and the professors about what would grow correctly here. And so he planted those varieties, and eventually he actually had the York brothers on York Mountain at York Mountain Winery make his grape into wine. So in 2010, we were actually able to purchase, that's where I'm sitting now on the historic York Mountain property. Not this building is new, but the property is historic. We purchased it from the bank, and we're able to put our tasting room in the historic old winery and redo that. And that is the winery where Pederevski brought his grapes. So.
And that is so funny. Like the hot springs really were, like you said, rampant. There were so many. I think there's 2 left, right? There's 2 active.
Yeah, but we do actually have we joke, and it might be true. I don't know. We have a hot spring on the Pederevski Vineyard. It's a sulfur spring, and we joke that it's not hot, but it's warm, and that he used to soak in that too, but we don't know. We wanted to put a clawfoot bathtub out there. So we're not sure if there was more on the property too back then that he enjoyed. But yeah, I think after a few earthquakes, things changed.
Things changed. And then you brought up the York Mountain and the York brothers. That's another whole other amazing Paso history with the York brothers. So like, can you explain them a bit too?
Yeah, so the York family came out here sort of like they were homesteaders, and they purchased the property from the original owner, and they decided to build a winery and plant grapevines. And so they did that out here. There's also orchards. There were probably apple trees. There were a bunch of, orchards and farms around the area. And they were one of the first, if not the first, bonded wineries in the county. And so many people from the past know about York Mountain Winery because they would come here to get their jug wine filled up. They would help out with the harvest. There's a bunch of the early winemaking families that were all connected in Paso Robles, and the Yorks are definitely one of them. And so we pay honor to them by we've resurrected the historic property here. We've replanted the vineyard that was decimated by deer because they didn't deer fence back then, and sort of brought the gorgeous building that was their winery, made out of bricks that were hand fired on the property, preserved that to be our tasting room now.
And during our earthquake, what got damaged? Something was like condemned, right?
So the original winery, there was a big earthquake in 2003. It was the San Simeon earthquake. It ran from Hearst Castle through Paso Robles and on down. And it was actually pretty significant. It was December 23rd, 2003. And it was a 6.49, something like that.
Yeah.
It was big.
It was up there.
It was up there. And since we're so close to San Simeon, because we're on 46 West on the way to Cambria, the the main building sustained a lot of damage and was condemned after that earthquake. And so that's where we were able to purchase it from the bank. Nothing had been done to the property or to the building itself since that earthquake. And so we had a lot of retrofitting and earthquake proofing to do while keeping the integrity of the original architecture.
So before we go on to the amazing amount of history, because there's so much going on with Epoch and Paso, I'm sitting here sipping, so I want everybody to know about. And you're at work, so you're working, so I'm guessing you don't have a glass to
I should have got one, but yeah, I did have quite a bit of wine tasting earlier because we're racking wines today.
Oh, okay. Busy day. So thank you again for taking time out of that then.
Of course.
So we have the 2017 estate blend, and you call it like a snapshot of the vineyard. So can you explain what you mean by that and why it's so important?
For sure. So that is our estate blend, which is our main biggest red that we produce. It is a Syrah dominant, but then basically has all the other varieties, so red varieties that we have planted on the properties. We have 3 different vineyard properties in Paso Robles, well, including our York Mountain property. And when you plant a vineyard, you match the soil type, the aspect of the slope, and the climate that you have to a variety, and not only the variety, but the clone of that variety, and then also the rootstock. And then you also make a decision of your trellis. How am I going to trellis this? Am I going to make a VSP, which is what most people are used to seeing, or do a head trained vine? Is it cane pruned? Is it spur pruned? All the kind of nerdy viticulture stuff, which we could go into, but it would take way more than an hour. But anyways, all these decisions go into planting a vineyard. And so by the time you're done with the vineyard, you have this sort of patchwork map, if you will, or quilt of what all the decisions that you've made. And this wine is the physical representation of the vineyard and those decisions in a certain vintage. So it's Syrah dominant because we have Syrah is the variety that we have planted the most of on our vineyards. And then Mourvèdre and Grenache are kind of neck and neck, depending on the year. They're pretty similar acreage. So there might be more of one than the other. And then we always have Tempranillo, which was kind of an offshoot when we first planted the vineyards. We knew that the Rhone variety grapes were going to probably do great, but we also thought that this area was reminiscent of Rioja or Ribera del Duero. And so we wanted to try our hand at Tempranillo as well. So we have some Tempranillo planted. We also do a single varietal of that. There's usually some Zinfandel, Petite Syrah, maybe some Carignan, Graciano. I'm trying to think what else I might be missing. But those are the main reds that we have planted, and not every year, every variety is in there, but definitely 4 plus another 1 or 2. So at least 5 or 6 varieties. It really is like a snapshot of the vintage. So the 17 was a very lush, rich, warm vintage. But it really captures Paso Robles and our properties with the limestone soils. And we have a lot of shale and crazy diurnal temperature swings, hot days and cool nights. It's all in that glass. So.
It is. And to me, it is very Syrah-esque to me. It's dark fruit. And then to me, I always get that like leathery, meaty.
I love that. Yeah.
That leathery meatiness of a Syrah. And then there's a good zing to it. And I think that like a little power punch to it, kind of on that mid palate. I don't know if you can explain like what's in there that brings up.
I think I love that description. I think it's probably the Grenache that really like heightens and brings, I mean, the wines have great acidity in Paso anyway, but it kind of brings the fruit to, so the Syrah is pretty brooding, and from Pederevski, it's pretty like briny and meaty, as Lori was saying. So you can kind of like heighten the palate, brighten it up, add fresh red fruit character and zinginess with the Grenache, mouth wateriness. Mourvèdre is kind of like this earthy, but in a totally different way than the Syrah, velvety, like glue that puts everything together. And the Tempranillo is definitely giving more backbone to that wine than just the Syrah. It gives a lot of structure. It has a lot of drying tannins. So the mixture of all of those kind of play really well together and create a very specific wine. And then there's the flair. There could be zin that could add zinginess or some spice. Graciano is got actually really great acidity and color if that's made it into that bottle. And then Carignan is very rony. It's like the kind of rony character like Mourvedre, but slightly different fruit.
And that to me, what makes the difference between a good wine and a great wine is what carries it through the whole palate. So sometimes you taste a wine and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. And then just like the mid palate and the end palate, just kind of like, oh, the finish just is like there, and then you're like, oh, well, was that good? Because I don't remember what it tasted like because the palate went away so quickly, and this, it starts off, you nailed it, like how I feel like it's brutish, like it's broody and it's bold, and it's a male wine at the beginning. And to 100%, I only just opened this like 2:30 and we started at 3, so it's got a little to go, but that's not a bad thing. Like, I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but it's a big wine. And then as you let it linger on your palate, that it's like this snake weaving through the palate and bringing everything together, and it just connects everything. So on the mid palate, it softens just a little, and silkiness starts to come in. And then on the end, it finishes so silky and so delicate. It just changes throughout the whole palate. And then the finish is just there. And you're like, yeah, this is some amazing stuff that I just had.
Oh, wow. That's such an awesome description. Thank you so much. I should mention too, because like I was talking about all the decisions, right? All the decisions are in the bottle, every wine you drink, right? So there's the vineyard decisions, but then there's the harvest decisions and the winemaking decisions. And we have a bunch of different vessels. We do a lot of concrete fermentation at Epoch. And so I have a room, all my fermenters, my big fermenters are usually concrete. And we have smaller, like stainless steel, small portable tanks. And then we actually ferment in barrels too. So there's all of these things in the wine too, which add to the complexity. And it does take a while for all of that to meld together. And I build the wines to age. So this wine, I think it's tasting great right now. And I mean, it's 17, so it's a few years old, but it's definitely built to last, right? So like 5 years from now, it'll be a little bit more of a subtle experience, but it'll still be really fun. And you'll still have that, all those different characters.
Yeah, I envision in a few years, the front, the brute of that Syrah that's there is going to lower down and tame itself a little bit down. But
yeah, I call it like losing all the baby fat, right?
Yes.
This baby fat. It becomes more, the structure of it a little bit more, but then the tannins also can soften. So
right. But that's what I'm loving about this, is because when you first taste it, the tannins are strong, but as it weaves through to the end, to that back palate, they somehow find their way to silkiness. So when you finally swallow the wine, you're not tasting that brute tannin anymore. It's evolved into this beautiful thing that just lingers on your tongue.
Oh, awesome. Love it.
So I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's funny because even though every year is different and it has different percentages of the varieties, it's not just like one block, of Pinot or Syrah or whatever. It's very consistent year to year too. There's a tie that binds all of those wines together year after year.
So how many wines does Epoch make?
So we make, oh my gosh, I should add up. I think we make probably, I used to say 11, but now our York Mountain property has come into production and we're bottling separate varietal wines from York, 3 of them, Syrah, Grenache, and Viognier. So I think we probably make 14 on a normal year. They just sort of like are chunked off at different times. So it doesn't seem like that many, and they're sold in different ways. And so it won't ever seem like that much to anyone.
And what is the production of Epoch?
We're at about 7,000 to 7,500 cases, depending on the year. So we sell fruit actually to some very lucky winemakers, I think personally, because we grow using all biodynamic practices and just growing the grapes as if we were going to make wine out of all of them, and sell to some people who vineyard designate too. So it's kind of fun to get like an exchange between the winemakers and us to just, share ideas and see what's best and see what people are doing. So fun to not grow grapes in a vacuum. It's just like, you don't want to make wine in a vacuum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, so bringing up biodynamic, it's such a hot topic now. And I have people who I have turned to believe in it. So I have an app that's called When Wine. Are you familiar with this app?
Is that the one that tells you how the day is, the biodynamic day?
Yes.
Right here, I have the biodynamic calendar.
Oh, okay. So right.
Yeah, I can look.
Yes.
We can look together and see. You look at yours.
I'll look at my app and see what it is today.
Oh, today. Wow. You tell me, because I see it's a good day.
Oh, it is a good day today.
I see that it's a fruit day. Yeah.
Okay. So I have
all day.
I have a big red fruit day all day long. And for those that don't know, it's very rare that the entire day is a yes. So a full fruit day, and maybe that is why I can get so much out of the wine today.
That was a great day, and I know I tried some wines to get this morning, and they were tasting fabulous. And I'm like, well, that explains everything's just very open, right?
Yeah.
Fruit days. So like we look to do things like racking, pulling wine out of bottle. Well, you kind of want to be on the ascending moon, which I can't read this as well.
I have the free version. So I don't know if it tells me all that.
But we do have a biodynamic consultant named Philippe Arminier, and he's a wonderful man. So if we ever have questions about, because there are certain days that are better to pick on and better to bottle on, and we do try to bottle on the better days because those are days we can definitely choose, but the harvest days, I try to look at it, but when things get busy, I stop looking at the calendar because I don't want to feel bad about a decision I made because I needed to get the fruit off because of the climate, something was happening.
Right. I mean, when it comes to harvest, there's so much stuff that's going on. Is a storm coming in? What's is the temperatures changing? Did we just go through a peak? A spike? Really, is the rain coming? Although that's a whole other story. I can geek out about that, but we'll go another route with that.
But I will definitely try not to pick on the blackout day, the days when you're not supposed to do anything. So if I can avoid it, I will. Yeah. But yeah, we try to follow as much as we can. I mean, we're not certified, so if we have to do anything to intervene in any way, we can. But for the most part, we do everything every year following the biodynamic principles.
So how biodynamic are you? Because I have read that some people, you can only, punch down in this direction or at this speed or whatever. Are you that biodynamic?
We're not that biodynamic in the winery.
Okay.
But in the vineyard, we follow everything. So when you're doing your biodynamic preparations, there's a certain way you have to stir it. We actually have the special stirring machine to get the silica ready for the spray. So we do all those things correct in the vineyard. And in the winery, like I said, we'll avoid the blackout days for picking, and then we'll try to bottle on the best days. But beyond that, we're not, same thing with racking. We're going to not rack on a bad day, but we're not just following it so dogmatically, like where we're not going to pump over for 24 hours. We definitely do continue to touch the wine during its fermentation.
It is such an intriguing concept to me because as in everything in our world, you can go way extreme but I have convinced several people that the taste of the wine, days to taste or days to blend or things like that,
Days
it
with
makes a big
better.
difference.
Yeah, they do. And I have to say that, like, the reason why I say all this is because we started doing it for the vineyard health. And so that is where we're most focused on the biodynamics. Because when I came, our Pederevski Vineyard was producing, but we had planted the Catapult Vineyard before I arrived in 2008, and it was struggling with conventional farming, and we were looking for some other answer. And the answer was like, well, I was new here. I could have tried to come up with my own paradigm of what I thought would be right, but I didn't have the experience here yet. And I knew that conventional farming wasn't working, but I also knew the issues. Like, I had been told the issues, like, this is the problem with passive robles, the pH of the soil is high, the there's not a lot of water. What water we have has high pH and isn't very, it's really hard to use, has, lots of issues. And so we just sort of started with it because it gave us a framework within which to work and to focus on the soil health to then invigorate the vines. And that's really what it has done. So I believe in that part 100%. And I honor anyone who wants to take it to the winemaking, because I know that there are days that the wines taste better, and that spoons pulled does make a difference. And the less you can touch your wine, the better. And
right.
so I try to think of all of those things in the winemaking context as well.
Yeah. At Dracaena, I think it was 2 years ago, we were doing our blending, and just nothing was like, this is it. Nothing was popping out as this is, what we want. This barrel tastes okay. This barrel tastes okay. What's going to, nothing tastes out. And for the heck of it, and this is when my husband converted, for the heck of it, I just kind of looked at the phone. I'm like, it's an all day no.
Yeah. Horrible. Wines. Yeah. It's like you ate yogurt for breakfast and then you tasted a bunch of wine.
Yeah. And so I was like, let's just stop and come back to it. And we waited till it was, a yes time, and we tasted it and we made a blend. It got a 92. So the blend was good, and that, I think it was this score that really finally came. He said, yeah, until we got the score. But yeah,
yeah, no, definitely. It was the wrong day in the biodynamic calendar. Yeah.
So I don't live by it, but I'll drink wine any day of the week. But sometimes you have a good bottle and it just doesn't taste wine, and it just doesn't taste like it should taste. And I'll look at it and I'll go, oh, it's a no day. So yeah, I'm just going to enjoy this wine anyway, but I'm missing out on as good as it could be.
Right. I do know that in France, there's some wineries that only bottle on the good biodynamic days. So you have to they all actually have their own bottling line for that reason. Because beyond the fruit day, or some people, they want to push wine into bottle on a descending day and pull wine out of barrel, when the moon is ascending. Right. And there's only so many of those days. So mobile bottling isn't as big of a thing there, because they might want to, bottle all at the same time. And then also taste with sort of critics, they'll say they all no, you can't taste on this day.
No, tomorrow.
I want to get to that point. That would be awesome.
Yeah, right. No,
my wines are not available for you on that day.
You will have to come back. Have to come back. No, he was just in Paso, right? He was just in. Yeah, he was in for what did we just have? The Rhone.
The Hospice de Rhone.
Hospice de Rhone was just.
Dunnick was here. Which is awesome. He does a tasting every year, and he came to moderate one of the panels, which is so great. But yeah, so there's usually, you submit your wine and then he tastes it at some event. And yeah, you wish you could be okay, as all at Paso get together. Let's not let him taste on the
right. Right. But that in its own right, that both of them were in Paso, shows how much Paso is on people's radar now, because, they wouldn't have come 10 years ago or whatever,
Totally.
So it just shows how incredible Paso is.
It's grown up so much in the last 15 years.
Yeah. So getting back to Epoch, because I am a huge supernatural fan. I am a believer of all of the stuff and everything. And there is supernatural going on at Epic.
There
So can you please
is,
share
or
what's going on?
was.
Or there
So
was, you got.
there was. So, it's an old historic property with historic homes on it. And when you drive up to Epic, when you come into where the tasting room is across the street, there is an old white farmhouse. And when we came, the farmhouse didn't have a problem with the earthquake, but it definitely needed a little bit of TLC. And I think there was somebody who worked for us whose hairdresser was also a ghost whisperer, ghost translator, something like that. So she asked to come and walk the grounds and see if she heard anything. So we did. We brought her into the farmhouse, and we actually heard a lot on her ghost transmitter, basically that we have a ghost, or had one, because we actually haven't brought her back since we actually really did a beautiful renovation. We think he's happy now, though. He might have moved on, but we definitely heard from someone. It was a male. We were walking through, and the most energy, I guess, come from this one room upstairs. And then there was just this other random fact that when people would tour the house, we did several tours for people over time. Again, this was before we renovated it, so no one be scared if, yeah.
I would be all in. That is a highlight. That is a highlight to me, like that. And I'll share a story after you finish yours.
Oh yeah. So, but anyone who would take a picture in this one room would have orbs in the picture always. So, and that's where we heard his name was Jim speak to us through the ghost translator. And one thing I have to say, which I was still just like, maybe the ghost translator, I don't know. It's like a little device you walk around with. I had my phone, and I just, it was like 2011. So I don't know. I still had a phone that recorded, and I was like videoing the whole thing. And the ghost translator said, video in the middle of me doing it. So I turned it off because I thought I was being rude. I have that on video. So it's pretty crazy. So yeah, apparently the rocks around here transmit a lot of that sort of energy.
So, okay.
Yeah. Do you have a Paso Robles ghost?
I don't. Well, it's not a Paso Robles ghost thing, although Paso Robles has quite a bit of the ghost history or whatever. And I'm always so amazed. Paso has so much history, right? Jesse James, and all, everything that goes on.
Yeah,
but,
all the Western people, and yeah.
But before we were like officially Paso, we were just visiting, and we were going up and down the coast. So we were going from Paso down to Santa Barbara and doing that. And we stayed at the Santa Maria Inn.
Oh,
okay. And I purposely chose that because it's supposed to be a haunted hotel. And my husband, bless him, whatever, he puts up with so much of my my quirkiness things, but it intrigues me. This is, I don't have any stories of where I, met a ghost or anything like that. I don't have anything like that. But I just think it's so cool. And who's to say? That's my opinion. Who's to say, we're just it. It's so we stayed at the Santa Maria Inn because it's supposed to be haunted. And I requested a very specific room because it's the room similar to, like you said, that the room always has the orbs. People say that they wake up, that the ghost that's in this room does something where he tickles your feet. He always like pulls your sheets up or whatever, so you tickle the feet or whatever. So we go into the hotel, and we did get that room. They did give us that. I requested it. They're like, oh my God. But I'm sure at this hotel many people are like, requesting specific things. But we go in, and this is where I embarrass my husband. I'm like, here, ghosty, come. Like I'm talking to my dog, I'm like, here, ghosty, please come visit us. And my husband's like, you are so insane. And I'm like, please. And so when we go, and then there's another room that, it's actually really sad. There's another room that a sea captain was murdered in, and that's supposed to be haunted also. But I went with the foot tickler versus the angry murdered sea captain or whatever, so we go in and I'm walking through the rooms and I'm trying to video things to see orbs and nothing's coming. So we go in the room and I'm like, here we go. And I'm like, you know what, Mike, I'm going to help the ghost out. We're going to sleep with our feet. We're going to sleep. I'm going to pull the sheets out of the bed so our feet are there or whatever. And he's just like, yes, dear, whatever.
He's okay going to sleep with all that. Okay.
But I called the ghost. I did everything. And my feet were not tickled. And I was so upset. I was so upset.
I think you don't notice it when you know it's coming or something.
Yeah, maybe.
When you're expecting it.
But I was so excited and nothing happened.
Nothing. So, you actually take pictures in there too?
I did. I took pictures. There was nothing. But I think when you're over anxious to meet them, I scared them away. That's what my husband says. You scared them away. You were a bit too eager.
He wasn't scared to sleep in there.
But that's like my one only, ghost. Every so often, if I find something where I can say, oh, look, we can go there. He's pretty much like, all right, whatever. But I don't have any experiences. I would have loved that experience.
Well, yeah. And I guess at Chalk Hill, there were some homes on the property too. And there was a ghost story from one of them too. So, or several, I think there was a couple homes that had ghosts. So,
so did she sage everything? Is that what she did?
She didn't. She just was like wanting to communicate, and we didn't necessarily want him to go, but we also, we think that we're all in a better place right now.
Yeah,
the house is in a better place, and
it's all repaired. It's all beautiful now. Yes. He's all happy. What's he to talk about, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think I'd be kind of scared to stay in there alone by myself at night, but with my family, it's fine. I've stayed in that house before. So
yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to have to come and visit because I would like to meet him. Yes. I absolutely
pretend like you don't know. You've never heard the story.
So we are almost at an hour, which but I can't let you go without talking about Dream Big Darling.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can tell us what that is, how you participate, and what people can know about it, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so Dream Big Darling is an organization that was started by a woman named Amanda Higgins, who has worked at Ancient Peaks Winery. Her family is part owners in that, and now she has her own winery branding and marketing consulting business. And she is just such a forward thinker in the wine industry and a woman. And her grandma was a huge influence in her life. And so she always told her to dream big. And so when she started to have some success in the wine industry, she wanted to pay it forward and basically created this organization that helps promote women in the beverage industry. And she named it Dream Big Darling. And so we have a big auction usually every year. And then they have a scholarship program where women can apply to it. And it's basically, I think it's almost a year round of activities, but mainly a really big, what do you call it? Like a seminar series that happens in Paso, and the women sort of win the scholarship and can come and learn and interact with each other. And it's just like starts as like a network for the beverage industry, whether you're a producer, if you're a distiller or winemaker or brewer, or you're in, sales in the tasting room or distribution or marketing, or you do online stuff. It kind of creates this meeting place for all these women. And I've met great people, and I've also had awesome women reach out to me. It's just really cool to see the connections over time. Like a Somm in Tennessee might be part of this organization, or someone who's studying winemaking at Davis. It just is a really cool group of women that just growing, right? So it's a great event. I'm sure there will be more stuff with it too. Obviously, during COVID, we had to go online with a bunch of things, and so it'll be back. Yeah.
And is there a website or something for?
Yeah, I think it's dreambigdarling.org. And you can find out information about the organization, the retreat. That was the word I was looking for. So the retreat, it's usually in September, where all the women kind of come together. And then there's the auction, which is usually in this late spring. She's also had a lot of support from Madeline Trefan, who's the first master sommelier, who's a woman. So she does a lot of events with Dream Big as well.
Okay. And before we go, I keep saying "and" before we go, but there's so much about you that like, it's so amazing. So we have to talk about your 2010, your blend being number 25 on the top 100 Wine Spectator. We got to make sure everybody knows about that.
Yeah. So the estate blend that Lori was tasting, the first vintage I came, and it was actually it was the second year we made it, because I made a blend of the 09 barrels because I had bottled those. And then in 2010, sort of, from vineyard to bottle, the 2010, once it was released and in the market, won the Wine Spectator's, it was on the top 100 list in 2013, because it's usually like several, the wine doesn't get released for 2 years after you. So it's 2013, number 25.
Okay.
So we're for that.
And it wasn't just a one-hit wonder, because you've made amazing wines throughout your time there at Epoch. And in fact, last year, you were winemaker of the year at the Wine Industry Awards. So yes, congratulations of that.
I have a huge belt buckle that's on my
the belt buckle.
So at the Whitman State Fair in Paso, they crown the Wine Industry Person of the Year, Winemaker of the Year, and Wine Grower of the Year of San Luis Obispo County. So I was lucky enough to receive that and got to have it in person, which was awesome. But yeah, it's a committee of peers that vote on everyone. So really, really awesome accolade.
That is fantastic. And is Epoch going to be at the Paso Wine Fest?
Yeah, they are actually. We don't always pour at it, but we have decided that we're going to be present and support that now that everything's back up and running. We used to do sort of like the library pouring, but we're doing that's happening also. And I think we're involved in that, but we're in the main buildings as well. So,
okay. And are you allowed to say, apparently there's like themes going on that are like top secret stuff.
I don't know about that, but I will find, because Taylor, who works with me in the winery, is going to a meeting that they're having on Thursday. We will find out.
Okay. Well, if anybody is interested in going to Paso Wine Fest on the 21st to first-handedly get to taste Epoch wines along with 500 other wines and 99 other wineries, they can use code ETWG, so Exploring the Wine Glass _22, and they'll get $20 off of their ticket.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I will be there covering it, and I will make sure I come over by Epoch and see. Are you going to be there, or will somebody else?
I might be there, but definitely I'm not slated to pour all day. So
okay.
Taylor and Audrey will be there if you come and see us, or come visit our tasting room, which I'm around there a good chunk of the time.
Okay, and so that's what I want to just wrap up with is, where can people find Epoch? And how do they reach out to you and order the incredible wine?
Yes, so we are present online at epochwines.com. That's EPOCH wines.com. We also have our tasting room that's open 7 days a week on York Mountain. We take reservations, so definitely make a reservation if you want to come and do a tasting. We do a whole flight style, so you get every wine poured in a separate glass and you can compare and contrast.
That is fantastic. So Jordan, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me and for taking time from racking, because I know how busy of a day that is. I appreciate it. And I hope I get to see you in a couple of weeks at Paso Wine Fest. Yes. And I appreciate everything. And the wine is incredible, people. And this is actually they can find this rather easily, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we are distributed. That is a wine that's in distribution. So it's in some restaurants and some bottle shops. So look out for the label.
Right. And then just next time you're in Paso, head to Epoch Winery so you can taste the wines that are not as distributed as that is. So grab a bottle of that and then get to the winery and taste all the other amazing wines that Jordan is making.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lori. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Hold on. Yay.